Okay, so this is the last part of the changing of the oil. We've got our oil filler cap up in the top. We've got a funnel that I just kind of cleaned out. So you don't want to have a funnel that's filthy if you're getting ready to pour good, clean oil back into your engine. I checked the specifications in the book at the beginning, and it has 7 quarts, and so I'm going to need the funnel. This one has a huge opening. So in my particular vehicle, I could probably get by without the funnel because it has a funnel-sized mouth, but you would want to use a funnel on most vehicles. It makes it easier to reach. You can put it in there. I'm probably just going to pour mine in because the mouth of that's so big. Mine also takes 7 quarts. So most jugs, when you get them, come with 5 quarts. Some come with just a gallon. This one comes with 5 quarts. On the side of most quarts, they'll have a little indicator that shows you how much. So when this is sitting flat, it's at 5 quarts, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then it's out. I will use 1 bottle and then 2 quarts out of another. Most of the oil is sealed at the top, so you might want to have a little knife or something to break it with, or a really hard finger. And I'm just kidding about having a hard finger. Everybody's fingers are about the same, I reckon. But we'll take this and get that off the top, the foil, make sure there's nothing that's going to fall into the engine. And then I'm going to go ahead and pour it in, right into the funnel. Now mine, again, happens to be a really big opening, so I can go ahead and just pour the whole jug. And we'll get all 5 quarts in there. This one I don't have to worry about checking it. Just as long as I don't overflow it, we'll be in good shape. So there goes the first jug, and I could sit here and wait a few minutes and let every drip get out, but it's really not that big of a deal. And then I'm going to get my second container of oil and go ahead, and I want to put in 2 quarts. So I'm not going to measure 2 quarts out. What I'm going to do, since we're learning and everything here in school, is this is a 5-quart jug. I need to put 2 quarts in. So I'm going to measure, and when there's 3 left, I know I'm in good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and take that, reach down, and then start the pour. It's probably getting close. Now we'll take a look. And you'll notice I'm right here at the 3-quart line. So that means I just put in 2 more quarts. So that's 7 quarts of oil in the truck. Now, one thing that you can do, and we'll do a video in just a minute about checking the rest of your capacities in the engines. That'll be another thing. But the engine oil dipstick. So yeah, you've probably heard that expression dipstick before, right? Maybe on a cartoon, or maybe your mom or dad when they're upset with you. Hey, dipstick. But anyway, you've got the dipstick right here that's going to tell you how much oil you have. And it's going to have little hatch marks on it that show you. Now, this oil is good and clean. It's going to be a little harder to see. Right now, it's covered with oil because we just poured it in. But on this side, and let me flip this over because the words are upside down. It says add and safe. The little hatch marks right here that say safe, we want the oil to be at that level. I know that we just put 7 quarts in. I know that we just drained everything else, including the filter. So when we do that, it should be just right. But it takes a few minutes for the oil to run down. We want to start the engine and circulate the oil so that it fills up the filter. And once all that's done, when we check the oil, it should be right in that hatch mark somewhere. All right, so the last thing I already mentioned, checking your oil level. I started up the engine, let it run. The oil should be circulated, then I turn it back off. Right now, the dipstick is probably going to be covered. It's pretty slimy. So I'm going to wipe all that excess oil off so that I can have a clear one to work with, because I'm going to be checking this side right here to find out how much I have. So I'm going to dip the dipstick back down into the oil and then pull it out and check the level. And you'll notice right now, it actually is showing just a touch low, which is a little surprising, but I'd say that some of it just hasn't made its way all down and through. But we want it to be in this part right here that has the hatch mark. So right now mine's right up to the add line. We really want it a little bit higher. And so I'll check it again in a little while, give the oil a chance to settle down where I just poured it in. Sometimes it takes a minute to run down, and we'll look at that. Another thing that I like to do, and I would recommend for you, is to keep records. So I'm gonna go back and write down today's date. And today is June the 1st. So I'll put 6/1 of 2020, and I have 84,649 miles, and I used Mobil 1, and it's the same as the other, but I'll write down 5W20 because that's what I used, and I'll write down oil and filter. So now I know when the last time that I changed it. I actually have little stickers that I'll put in the window to remind me of when the next one is. And finally, there's a little thing in the book that says oil change indicator reset, and it says 196. I'm not going to go through this because a lot of people's cars are different, but a lot of the cars that have been made in the last 15 years or so will have a light that tells you, hey, it's time to change your oil. So you go over and it will tell you about the warning change oil message, and it'll also give you a place that tells you how to reset it. So yours may be different. Mine is turn the key on and not the engine, and then pump the gas pedal 3 times and turn it off. There's different codes, but then we're done. So the oil change is all right. So now we're going to go ahead while we're messing with the car and do some other just real basic maintenance by checking the fluids that are under the hood. This is something that's really simple to do, but it'll make sure that your car will keep lasting and that you won't have any major problems while you're down the road unless you have a breakdown or something, but it's good preventive maintenance. Right here we have our windshield washer fluid. That's not an absolutely critical fluid, but if you want to clean your windshield washers, or windshield off with your wipers, it's pretty good. You'll notice mine's already pretty well full to the top. You just pull the cap off and fill that up with the windshield washer fluid of your choice. One thing to be careful of, Walmart now is starting to sell what they call their summer blend, which has basically very little alcohol and stuff in it that would keep it from freezing. So if you put it in the summer and you get what they have, it could freeze up and actually damage your engine or some of the components in the winter. So I would always get stuff that's rated to freeze down really low, like, you know, well below 0. This is the engine coolant. That's what runs through your radiator and keeps your car cool. You'll notice this also is a translucent case. Here's the line that says it's full, don't put any more in. This is the line that says you need to add a little. You'll notice maybe down there, the red line at the bottom, I'm a little bit below where it needs to be. So I'm gonna go in and add a little bit of coolant a little later on and just make sure that I've got that where it needs to be. We already talked about the engine oil. We pull out the dipstick, take a look at it, and there's marks that'll show you where it needs to be. If you need to add a little bit, you don't want to overfill it. And the hatch marks in there usually give you about a quart range on most vehicles, so that if it's all the way down to the bottom hatch, you can put in another quart. This is your brake fluid, and again, it has lines on the outside that you can see. You can take the lid and just pour brake fluid. If you're going to do that, I would recommend buying brand new brake fluid. Even every time. In fact, the marks are on this side on mine that'll kind of show you the minimum and the max. It's got to be at least this high, and that's what it tells you. So we're good on brake fluid. And then finally, the last thing, if you have an automatic transmission, is you have to check your transmission fluid. Now, the one thing that's a little different, and we're not going to do this right now, but on the transmission fluid, it's a big long dipstick, just like your oil, and it has some little marks on it that are going to show you this is where it should be if it's cool, and it is. This is where it should be if it's hot. So you can check the transmission fluid. It's usually better to do that when it is hot to get a good feel for it. Mine's been sitting a little while, but it is in the cool zone, so it's okay. But you want to check all of these fluids periodically in your with your car to make sure you've got everything you need to keep it running. Okay, so this is one other thing that I wanted to show you. It's a little different. This is a Chrysler minivan with a 3.6 liter. It's a different setup than the truck. Most vehicles use the canister type oil filters that you go down underneath and remove them. This particular one has a cartridge type filter that looks like this. So it doesn't have the can around it, which you would think would make it cheaper, but for some strange reason makes it cost about 3 times as much. Right here on the top is where the oil filter goes, which actually makes it a lot easier to change. This one is a 15/16 wrench. You can stick down the ratchet and turn it. I've already loosened it. You take it off, you pull it out if you've got room, and here comes the oil filter. You want to make sure you pay attention to how it goes in. This one just slides in. It's got a little snap ring. For cleanness, I'm going to stick it back in the box and then just throw the box and the filter away. And then I take the new filter and just snap it back in and then screw it back down and just kind of tighten it up. It's got a rubber seal on it, so you don't have to crank it real hard, just enough to get it in there. So that's how that one works.